Coming at you live from all over Ohio. A Cleveland Browns podcast full of laughs, rants, fun, and stats. A place where all Browns fans' voices are welcome and heard. A show that aims to inform and entertain you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Barking Browns Show.
Good Tuesday evening for you, everyone. Welcome into episode 117 of the Barking Browns Show. I'm Jacob. That's Nick. We're brought to you, as always, by our friends over at Homage Apparel. Nick's got the Nick Chubb celebrating that. I got the Brownlee Stiff Arm Elf, who I believe is going to win the midfield competition. I'm just saying that. I have a pretty good confidence. There's some stuff going around the internet. I'm fairly confident. Listen, man, they're the best vintage apparel company on the market. Go check them out. There's a link in the description down below. Take you over to their Cleveland Browns collection. Go check all that awesome stuff and, tell them that Network 216 sent you. Nick, it is Christmas Eve, and I say it's Christmas Eve because we have the 53-man roster.
We do.
The initial one. There will be changes tomorrow. So, and we will preface that by anybody who is not watching this show live. This is being recorded at 8 on Tuesday night. So we're doing the initial 53-man roster. We'll also do some predictions about where we think is going to go from here. Are they going to cut some people? Are they going to IR some guys? What we think, who could they bring back? All of that good stuff. We're checking that out. Nick, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday evening?
Well, I'll tell you what. So this weekend, I had the pleasure of attending a bachelor party while you were working so very hard and being just awesomely productive for Network 216 with our latest preseason review episode, which, by the way, has gotten all kinds of views, all kinds of subs. Thank you to everybody for supporting that video with the great Jacob, Casey Kinnaman. Great combo there, obviously. So to everybody that continues to return and has hit the sub button, hit the like button, help us to get to where we are now, it means the world to us. So thank you to everybody who did that. And thank you, Jacob, for handling that, because I had the opportunity. I'm not sure I would describe myself as an extreme person, but I had the opportunity to go spelunking and to go whitewater rafting this weekend. Like, I'm talking like your only light is the headlamp on your hard hat that you're wearing. You're wearing like hiking boots and squeezing, shimmying, crawling, climbing, just all this stuff that I did not know I was capable of. And it was quite an experience. I do it. So thank you for covering the load while I was gone. I have to start off the show by giving you your props. You have broken the rubber match between us. And for those who don't know, for those who are new here, 2 years ago, I won our inaugural roster prediction competition.
No, I did. You won last year.
Last year you won, right?
I don't know. Fuck, I don't know.
2 years ago I won. Last year you won, and you have broken the rubber match. You have finished with a more accurate prediction of the Browns' final 53-man roster. So for those who don't remember, we had a vote on what the penalty would be. And whenever a certain quarterback gets mentioned, I'm going to be saying I ride with 6. So let's just that's the first one. Let's kick it off there. I'm sure Jacob's going to have a lot of fun with it. At least I get to say I ride with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
No. Don't you try that. Don't you try that.
It was
MC's got a question. Do you have some thoughts on Watson?
I ride with 6.
Boom! All right, guys, we are going to jump right on into it. There's probably some dick jokes in the future. So I'm going to – a bunch of awesome people tuning in over on YouTube and on the Facebook. If you're on Twitter and you want to interact, go to the YouTube page, go to the Facebook page. Can't see the Twitter comments. Josh subbed for 4 years, a member to the channel. Thank you so very much. Appreciate that, my friend. If you want to help us out and earn some awesome badges and emoticons, you can get a membership to the channel for $2.99 a month. Help us continue to do all this great stuff you got.
Casey's great. That's all I
I had to cancel my 2025 seventh round pick party. I'm sorry, Joey. I'm very sorry about that. First out the gate, why you waive Watkins? I do not think he's better than Bell. I understand that that's the argument. The thing with Watkins is, and we'll get to it a little bit more in depth, is just keep in mind who he was dominating. He was dominating people that also got cut today. So, and we'll get to that when we get to the wide receiver. We'll go much more in depth, but that's just the quick overview of that. Okay, so we are going to go in first. I will list the players that were waived, cut today, and then we'll go through the 53, and then we'll go position by position just to give some thoughts on that and where we think it'll go from there. So let's see. Today, the following players were waived, which means they are subject to waivers. Should they clear waivers, some of them will probably be brought back. Lorenzo Burns, Jalen Darden, the wide receiver, Demetric Felton, running back Hassan Hall, wide receiver Mike Harley, defensive end Sam Kamara. I think Kamara is a really good practice squad candidate because he showed some flashes here and there. Sure. Defensive end Jeremiah Martin, safety Tanner McAllister, tight end Zaire Mitchell Payton, another guy I think that will absolutely bring back the can. Quarterback Kellen Mond, thank God. Defensive end Lonnie Phelps, the undrafted free agent from Kansas. Linebacker Charlie Thomas, who had some flashes. Defensive end Isaiah Thomas had that knee surgery. Tommy Togiai, Austin Watkins, and Cade York, all waived today. The following four were cut. That means they are not subject to waivers. So there could be a hint, wink, wink, nudge agreement to bring them back after some IR moves are made to the current. And that's Michael Dunn was cut, Tristan Hill, Maurice Hurst, and John Kelly. And they put Michael Woods on season-ending non-football injury list with the torn Achilles. That means that this is your breakdown position by position for the Browns' initial 53-man roster at quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Deshaun Watson.
You got, I ride with 6, I guess. Yeah, I do. I ride with 6.
There we go. All right. Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong. At wide receiver, David Bell, Amari Cooper, Marquise Goodwin, which, we talked about on Sunday's show. Oh, my God, I'm so excited that he's back. Elijah Moore, DPJ, Cedric Tillman. Tight ends, no surprises here. Jordan Akins, Harrison Bryant, David Njoku. Offensive linemen, Joel Batonio, Jack Conklin, Nick Harris, James Hudson, DeJuan Jones, Ethan Posick, Wyatt Teller, Jed Wills, and Luke Whippler. On the defensive line, 9, Jordan Elliott, Myles Garrett, Shelby Harris, Siaki Ika, Isaiah McGuire, Ogbo Okoronkwo, Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Alex Wright. The linebackers, 7, this is definitely, I think, Kanasic is headed to IR with the MCL injury, so I think that's where your first one, that first open roster spot comes from. Matthew Adams, Mahmoud Diabate, Tony Fields, Jordan Kanasic, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Siani Takitaki, and Anthony Walker Jr. It's so crazy that Taki is not on the pup or anything like that.
Kudos to him.
Oh, my God. The dude's a beast. DeAnthony Bell, Grant Delpit, MJ Emerson, Mike Ford, AJ Green, Ronnie Hickman, Rodney McLeod, Cameron Mitchell, Greg Newsom, Juan Thornhill. Whew, I about skipped some. This is Denzel Ward are your defensive backs, your specialists, Corey Bojorquez, Dustin Hopkins, and Charlie Hewitt. So that is your 53-man roster. How long do teams have waiver terms are waiver wire? They are processed at the end of the next day, which is 4. So it should be around 4 when they can officially start being announced, I believe, tomorrow.
So we'll see if the Browns have interest in some guys. I'm sure we'll get into that. I just want to, before we really dive into the roster, I want to answer Casey's question. So I was actually in Ohio Pile. I never even knew this place existed, but it's in Pennsylvania. It's about 3 hours from here. They have also all kinds of hiking, biking, whitewater rafting, the whole thing. And the cave was about like 15 minutes away from there. It's like up in like the Pennsylvania's got mountains, man. I never realized how blessed we are to drive on so much flat land in Ohio until you try driving in Pennsylvania. And I've done that in back-to-back weekends now. Not a great time. Don't suggest the mountains. Thank you to the glacier for flattening Ohio.
There you go. This is a good point. It's until 12 p.m. tomorrow is when they can make the waiver claims. Typically, it's the end of the league day at 4 that you hear about them. That's what I was trying to get at 12, 1 o'clock, something like that. The Browns are, in fact, 12th on the waiver wire. It goes by this past offseason's draft order. So they're 12th on the waiver wire.
Makes sense.
Okay, so first things I want to do as we kind of dive into this, I just real quick one last time want to talk about the kicker.
Okay.
And that is because that move, of course, happens yesterday, happens in the 1 day in between podcasts for me, so I haven't commented on it. Somebody tweeted, and I really wish I could remember who said this so that I could give them credit. But somebody tweeted that they believe that if you never hear Dustin Hopkins' name again, then the trade was absolutely worth it. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. So what you did is you traded a high ceiling guy in Cade York because he has this massive leg and a low floor to go get a guy that's in his 8-year career only attempted 30 over 50 yards, 30 attempts for him. He's 15 of 30. That's not what they're concerned about. They're raising the basement of this roster with Dustin Hopkins, and I'm no longer anxious. He has an 8-year track record. And I know the last couple he's dealt with some injuries, and that's, of course, how Cameron Dicker came to be in LA to begin with, who eventually beats him out. But you're looking at a veteran, 8 years in the league, 84.8% career percentage, really 94%, I believe, on extra points. That's what we need. You need to be league average. Dustin Hopkins has proven he can be average to above average. That's what they need. They're risking nothing. So this whole Andrew Berry's going to screw us for his draft picks. Yeah, no, he's not. So we knew they couldn't risk this, man. And everybody's freaking out they were still going to do it. No, they understand the implications. They go get Dustin Hopkins, who remember he has 2 years left on his contract, so he's under contract next year as well. They're probably going to try to bring Cade York back to the practice squad. Kevin Stefanski said that today, that he would love to do that if Cade's interested and if he clears waivers. This is a move that had to happen. I think it's a great move. It's not getting Justin Tucker, but it's getting a dude that does his job. That's all we've wanted. Just do your job. You don't have to be amazing. Just get it done when you're supposed to get it done. I think that's what Dustin Hopkins is.
Yeah. You know what, Jacob, you said a lot of things I agree with there. I have been arguing with people for the last 2 days since they added Dustin Hopkins about this, because we complain when Andrew Berry keeps his draft picks, and then we complain when Andrew Berry admits his mistake, addresses the situation with a consistent, proven answer for a 7th round draft pick. I don't think
not even next year. It's 2025 7th round draft pick, guys.
So let me play devil's advocate for a second. Who are the Browns drafting in the 7th round that is going to be so impactful that discarding the chance at a consistent, reliable, proven, the 20th most accurate field goal kicker in NFL history currently? Who is going to make that worth it? And so even if you can say somebody in the 7th round that would make that worth it, what are the odds in drafts moving forward that 7th round pick is going to be more valuable than Dustin Hopkins is going to be to the Cleveland Browns this year?
I think the hit rate on 7th round picks is probably less than 5%. You can find decent special teamers and some like Tom Brady, so like I know that you can find sure, but like the 7th round picks are just, you're taking flyers on guys that you hope you get lucky on.
We have been talking all off season about how important this year is, about how 1-31 is what the start of the Browns build towards this, how this core is in their prime now, how you need to win now, the pressure on Kevin Stefanski, the pressure on the team, the just everything that has happened since the Browns made the Deshaun Watson trade and just the overall feeling of the fan base and mood around the franchise. And so I think we can collectively agree that this season is as important of a year since the Browns have returned to the NFL.
And they proved that they know that.
And that's where I was going with it is Andrew Berry is showing that he recognizes the importance. You cannot leave the kicking game to chance. I tweeted out today, the Bengals, because people have said in the past that if the quarterback's good enough, if the offense is good enough, it shouldn't have to lean on the kicking game. They made the point today. I went back and looked at some things. The Bengals needed an Evan McPherson field goal to go to the AFC Championship game and subsequently the Super Bowl. The Chiefs, led by Patrick Mahomes, have needed a field goal to go to the Super Bowl. The Patriots, led by Tom Brady, have needed a field goal to win a Super Bowl. I don't care how good your quarterback is. I don't care how good your offense is. You need consistent kicking, and that's what Dustin Hopkins is. And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled, and I'll defend it to the end of time. So as many people as want to keep knocking the fact that Dustin Hopkins was going to get cut, that the important piece of this is that there are many other teams in the market for a kicker. Jacob was talking to me.
There was like 2 more kicker trades today.
And that's the whole point. Kicking is needed everywhere in the NFL. Andrew Berry struck first. Andrew Berry made the first kicker trade. So I think he was ahead of the
hilarious?
Rather than yes. And they're trying to knock it. They're trying to say this wasn't a good move. You need kicking. And all these other teams need kicking. So aren't you smarter? Aren't you operating more efficiently by getting the first kicker that's proven and consistent? Help me understand, Jacob.
Oh, Tiger. I was like trying to act like I was flirting with you. I was trying to be like, hey. So I don't know. Like that's what Mary Jane always called Peter Parker in Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man animated series was Tiger. Yeah, man. Like you start the trend. I love it. So we'll move past kicker because I think we need to move past kicker, but we wanted to say that. And
the Browns got better.
The OBR even, I think it was Jake Burns that said flat out, this is the thing, flat out, right? On Saturday, Browns needed Cade York to make a kick. He missed it, but Butker didn't because they still needed him to make the kick. Kansas City did, and he did. And it was an average kick for Cade. It was a 43-yarder. So let's move on. What I want to do first, before we kind of go top to bottom of these groups, is I want to talk about 2 players that I believe are going on IR and the 2 players that will replace them.
That's
and then
important.
we can go top to bottom through it, and we can talk about players that could, because players can still get cut depending on who they claim. First and foremost, I believe that we're pretty like 99% sure that Jordan Kanasic is going to go to IR. Mm-hmm. He has an MCL injury. It sounds like he can return. If it was a complete tear, a real messed up knee or something like that, they would have placed him on season-ending IR. So them getting him through the initial 53, it almost reminds you last year of Jacob Phillips, or was that 2 years ago? It was 2 years ago where Jacob Phillips had torn that bicep and he still eventually came back, but they put him on that short-term IR.
Yep.
So I think Kanasic goes there, and I think Alex Wright does as well. Alex Wright is on the bike today. He's looking better, like he's kind of getting back. Drew says Dunn, Hurst, Kanasic, and Thomas are IR. Hurst and Thomas were cut. So neither of those guys are on that. But for me, it's going to be Kanasic, and I think it'll be Alex Wright. And I think they bring back Mo Hurst and Michael Dunn. And I see that Nick put it in there right as I was saying it too, that he agrees. I think it's pretty clear that they're going to I think the 2 obvious ones are Alex Wright and Jordan Kanasic. I think they go away. They need more veteran guards. And like I said, it's important that they cut Mo Hurst and they cut Michael Dunn. Sorry, I zoned
Yeah.
out for a second.
He-
Because those guys aren't subject to waivers as vested veterans. So they could have done one of those little and I saw someone mention that Mo Hurst did not have any guaranteed money. So it could be a situation where they went to him and they were like, hey, we're going to cut you, but if you come back, we're going to be giving you this.
Mhm.
So I just believe Mo Hurst and Dunn are the two that come back for sure.
Because I think when the Dunn news came out, which was yesterday, I think people were collectively pretty surprised because Dunn was the first guard in beyond Teller and Batonio, so that kind of raised some eyebrows. And I think we've talked a lot about Mo Hurst in the preseason. I felt like he was an impactful defensive tackle that, and his story is going to be, if that does in fact happen, if Hurst does come back, that's going to be another one of those Andrew Berry additions where it's a guy that, is given a chance to revive his career and very well could here in Cleveland. So I'm really excited about that. I think both guys are like Dunn. Dunn was a guy for me when I was doing the roster that I was like, yeah, Michael Dunn's coming back. That's a guy that's been a consistent contributor, especially, offensive line injuries are always a thing. So Dunn is a key piece there. And so I'm really hoping Hurst comes back as well. I think all of a sudden you go from a defensive tackle room that you don't feel that you didn't feel great about until they added guys like Shelby Harris and Dalvin Tomlinson. And now all of a sudden you've got Shelby Harris, Dalvin Tomlinson, Mo Hurst. You've seen be more productive, and so maybe Jordan Elliott isn't relied upon in that same role that I think we can both agree that we would rather they pursue other options.
Am I allowed to say it? He stinks. God. All right. Yeah. So it's important that Dunn and Hurst had their contracts terminated, cut, whatever you want to say. They're just not subject to waivers. That's the important part. They're not subject to waivers, so they could have a little. And Mary Kay's been on a roll lately with all these puns and saying that Michael Dunn is not done yet. Like that. Come on,
Good
man.
for her.
Just high quality tweets from Mary Kay this week. And she also implied that she believes that Mo Hurst is among those that will come back. I'm with you, man. Like Mo Hurst, man, there 3 straight games. He didn't really play that well in the Hall of Fame game, and I was kind of disappointed because I really thought that he could be one of those guys. And of course, at first, that was before Shelby Harris was signed. So I was like, man, we gotta find another one, but all that good stuff. And so he doesn't play great in the Hall of Fame game. 3 straight games where he just he's even the thumbnail of this video. Like 3 straight games where I just thought as a pass rusher, he was just, I think he's a relentless rusher. Like it doesn't matter if his first move doesn't work. He's going to fight. He's got a really nice get off. He's really strong. He can convert speed to power. From the interior, Mo Hurst is exactly what they need on the interior from the rush side of it, especially because you think Ika is more of just your run stuffer. The top 2 in Harris and Tomlinson are kind of multifaceted dudes. They can do both. But I really think Hurst earned his role, and I think he will be back because I think they needed to find a way to keep Alex Wright and to keep Jordan Knoxick without losing them for the season. They had to find a way to put him on short-term IR. So Mo Hurst absolutely earns his job, and Michael Dunn has been great.
I just think that you want I don't know if Siaki Ika is going to be a guy that can get pressure, get towards the quarterback, or if he's going to be more of a run stuffer in this Browns offense. So if you have a guy like Mo Hurst as your third defensive tackle there, that's 3 guys I feel like you can realistically say can get after the quarterback from the defensive tackle position. Comparatively, it was almost non-existent last year. So that is a significant step up.
Mick pointed this out, was really Elliott was the highest rated DT last year. Yeah. That's
the thing.
Anyway, okay. So let's start going. We'll start working our way down the position groups, and we'll start talking about them. Talk about some surprises, and if we believe they're going to make anything else. We're not going to talk about quarterback, except for that guy Deshaun Watson. He's pretty good.
I ride with 6.
Yeah.
I do. Hey, they wouldn't be the least surprising thing. Could Tampa Bay compete in that division this year?
Stop. I mean, yeah, they can, but stop. We're not doing this.
Okay.
Not on the Lord.
It'd be really fun
All
if
right.
they did, though, because then I'd make myself say I ride with 6 and I'd just have a ball.
It would be all right with it, I guess. So we won't talk about the quarterback room. We knew it was coming once Josh Dobbs was traded. I still don't think Kevin Stefanski knew. I don't think anybody knew because the reports from Mary Kay was that trade for Dobbs came out of nowhere. And I truly don't think Kevin lied. He either it hadn't materialized yet or they just hadn't told him yet. Like, I really do not think that he knew, and then all of a sudden he was gone. You're like, okay, whatever, all right.
Can we just mention the irony of a Browns quarterback getting traded to the Cardinals, which leads to a former Browns quarterback getting cut by the Cardinals?
Like they're trying so hard to tell you they're not tanking, but they're literally probably they're either going to start Clayton Tune or a guy that's been there for 6 days. Like, I don't know why they kept. I mean, I get it. They kept Colt McCoy through the preseason, and he sucked in the preseason, and that's kind of what forced their hand.
I get it.
You should have brought someone else in before then. Like, if this was what we were.
Yeah.
I digress. It's a mess out there in the desert.
Good luck to him. Oof.
So we'll go to the running back room. As we expected at the top, and as we kind of expected as the preseason went on, they made a move for another running back because nobody else seemed to step up. I really thought that Hall of Fame game was good from Demetric Felton and from John Kelly. So Jerome Ford was back at practice today. So there is some news on Jerome Ford. They're optimistic that he plays, but both Jerome Ford and Harrison Bryant returned to practice today. It was a walkthrough, but we also have 12 more days. So optimism for Jerome Ford, optimism for Harrison Bryant. Real quick, I'll let you take the Pierre Strong thing in just a minute because on Sunday's roster evaluation with Casey Kinnaman, I already talked about that. Nobody stepped up, man. Like, Kelly fell off, Felton fell off, and Jordan Wilkins had a prime you feel bad for Jordan Wilkins because he had an opportunity to make the roster and he literally fumbled it away. Like, I heard Andrew Spade made that joke on the OBR and I was like, I am stealing that. Thank you. Because it's correct. Like, you feel terrible because it was right there. He fumbled it away. Okay. They go out and they get Pierre Strong. A good point here. Read that Pierre Strong was a guy AB wanted. I had heard that too. It sounds like, and Casey Kinnaman brought this up on Sunday, that it could have been Pierre Strong instead of Jerome Ford had Pierre Strong not been drafted before Jerome Ford. So Pierre Strong goes in the 4th round. And let me tell you something about Pierre Strong before I step out and let you talk about Pierre Strong. Old dude's got some wheels, all right? He is a 4.37 guy, and he's like 6 foot 215 too. He's not like Darren Sproles or anything like that, like where he's a smaller, faster guy. Pierre Strong, he's got a nice little stiff arm, man.
Yes,
like, if you go back and watch some of his tape from South Dakota State, like, I get it. It was FCS. You're 100% correct. But as I have told you guys many, many times on draft episodes, if you are in a smaller school, I need you to dominate in order to prove you can play at the next level. Well, that's what he did. That is what he did at South Dakota State. In the COVID shortened year, he still managed 1,000 yards, So he is a 4.37 straight burner, has return experience, and is stronger than you think. I know it's unproven, but I really like the way this running back room is shaped out.
Yeah. It's interesting that both Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong are from the same draft class. So you've got 3 years left on both of those contracts behind Nick Chubb, which I definitely like. And as far as Pierre Strong goes himself, you're talking about a guy who's over 9 in the relative athletic score. So he's a hell of an athlete, somebody that has just piled up touchdowns and yards. And I watched replays of him against Arizona, which I think was the last game he played with New England. And you can just see when he hits the hole, there is burst there.
Smooth accelerator.
Gone, absolutely. And I'm really excited about that. And you're talking about a guy who's I wouldn't say he's a prolific pass catcher, but somebody that's caught a reasonable amount of passes and been able to be productive with that too. So I think all of a sudden you go from a lot of questions in the running back room. We talked about that a lot, and I feel like Demetric Felton also had his opportunity to really show out. I just feel like when you look at Pierre Strong and you look at Demetric Felton, give me Pierre Strong, and especially when you consider the price when you're trading. And so I'm assuming that Tyrone Wheatley was not going to make your roster, and so you've turned a guy that you picked up for free into
during the practice squad last year out of nowhere. You developed him.
You brought him to the practice squad, developed him, and turned him into a 4th round pick in his 2nd year, which that is value creation right there. And one of the biggest reasons why I'm not worried about giving a 7th round pickup, a 7th round pick up for a kicker, because Andrew Berry has just been continuously able to produce value out of really in terms of Tyrone Wheatley, and good luck to him. I hope he's solid for New England, and I think he had some moments this preseason.
He had a great preseason. He was good. He was very good.
And that's why New England was interested in him, right? But the Browns very much needed an answer, and the hamstring injuries have a tendency to linger with guys when they have them, and so I'm really hoping for a productive season from Jerome Ford, but I think you just gave yourself that much more of an answer. And barring any kind of injury, Nick Chubb's had his share of injuries, and it's unfortunate, but it's just a part of the game, especially for running backs. So you need guys that you're going to be able to count on. And I feel like if you told me Pierre Strong was going to be the Browns starting running back, I mean, I'm not going to be overjoyed about it, because obviously you're missing the Chubb, but I feel like he could absolutely step in and be productive for them. He's a guy that is an answer. And when you've got questions in that room, you've got two rookie running back contracts for the next 3 years in that room behind Chubb. And I feel like that's a great place to be when you're paying one running back significant money. They have depth. They have a ton of potential. We haven't seen a ton of Ford either, right? So you've got two guys that have return experience. Ford did it last year and improved as he did it as well. Then you got versatile guys who can catch passes out of the backfield. There's a lot of options there all of a sudden for the Browns to play around with. And running has always been a strength of this team in the Kevin Stefanski era. So I'm thrilled about it. I love it, especially when you're talking about a guy that you were most likely going to cut, and you're getting a running back for cheap for the next 3 years at least. Love it.
You're turning a position of strength, taking from a position of strength to address a position of weakness. Yeah. As Drew said, 10 rushes for 10-yard average last year from Strong. He also had he had 5 kick returns too. So he didn't do a ton of it in college, but he's done it in the preseason and things like that. So especially if they don't want to run Ford out there right away with the hamstring, at least on returning kicks, if they want to potentially save him a little bit longer from that. Pierre Strong has that question. Hey, what do you call a herd of cows masturbating? That's beef stroganoff. Anyway,
oh, that's a delicacy of a dish that you just
standard. It's delicious. I love it.
Okay.
On to the wide receiver room. This is where I knew it, man. Like, I really wanted Austin Watkins to make it because I really enjoyed his preseason, but I just had this feeling in the back of my head. I'm like, we're going to be disappointed. He's not going to make it. So ultimately, the surprise is Marquise Goodwin being ready.
Yes, it is.
Of course, they're still kind of playing coy on if he'll actually play week 1, but he is not starting on any kind of list. He's starting on the active roster. He was out there at practice today. If you haven't had an opportunity to see him talk after practice today, please go check that out. He is clearly a guy that guys gravitate to. Like, you hear that guy talk and you're like, yeah, like this dude. And he's been around he's a multi-year NFL vet. He's been there. He's seen it. He's won. He's lost. He's produced. He gets all of that, and it's like him. You could just tell, like, personalities gravitate to him. And one thing that was always interesting, he never left, man. He was always at practice. He was always on the sidelines. He was always there hanging out. This team, man, it feels close in terms of like players being friends or friendly. I feel like they're that, and Marquise Goodwin just brings a whole nother level to this thing, man. Just a whole nother level. Stretch the field. I said this on Sunday. It's just a domino effect. It goes and it helps everybody on the field. So that's actually the surprise. That I had 7, Jalen Darden being the 7th in my original prediction. And then I thought it was Jakeem Grant. I'm just sick for Jakeem Grant, man. I am just
tough situation.
Because I think he was on this roster. I think if they would have, it would have probably put him in a position to keep the 7, and it would have been him. And it's like I was so excited. I saw him in the end zone getting ready to return that kick, and then it didn't show him on the ground right away. So I was just chatting with my dad as we were watching this game, and I was like, hey, talking to him, and I look up and I'm like, no, and then they put an air cast on him, and you're just like. Man, it heart breaks for him.
Especially when the Achilles injuries are probably the worst injuries you can have.
Battled.
Like you're talking before these injuries happened. Jakeem Grant was a Pro Bowl returner, right? Yeah. And so just to see a career go from literally being the top of your game, a Pro Bowl returner, to back-to-back injuries, and how hard it is to work back from Achilles injuries. It's brutal. And I saw that, and I was just so saddened by it. So prayers up for him. I hope his recovery is speedy. It's not fair. You feel for him. I agree with you. I think that Grant would have been the 7th receiver, and he would have been the returner, but that is the unfortunate nature of football. Sometimes injuries just derail incredible athletes, and it's not fair. I think as far as the other receivers go, I was excited about Austin Watkins. I loved what I saw from him. Maybe part of it is just seeing him in 80 and having a little bit of nostalgia, but I do think his production in the preseason was meaningful. But it also speaks to the depth. When Marquise Goodwin comes back, I feel like that was the final shot for him. If Marquise Goodwin had not been back, I think Austin Watkins could have been your 6th receiver.
Yeah, because I think you were always keeping 6 at least.
Yeah, I think you're definitely keeping 6. But it's like we talked about so many times before. The Browns have continuously found themselves in these situations where they don't have a guy who takes the top off the defense. Marquise Goodwin is going to be back. I'm so excited about that because they need that guy. They need that element in the offense. They got it. Maybe Austin Watkins gets to the practice squad. Maybe. I'm going to hope. That's my thought. I feel like David Bell is only a going into his 2nd year as a pro. I'm not going to give up on him that soon. I just don't feel like that's the move. I don't understand why you would. You still got 3 years left on his deal. And so if he is a productive player for you, that's 3 years of cheap contributor play. And so that to me makes a ton of sense. So that's what I saw a lot of that today, Jacob. Like the Browns should have kept Austin Watkins and got rid of David Bell. And I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do that. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, man. Like one of them is 26 and has 0 career yards.
Yeah. Yep. That's a way to say it.
I was part of the Austin Watkins fan club, but man, just remember he was playing deep into the 4th quarter of preseason games, dominating dudes that nobody has ever heard of. I hope they can bring him back on the practice squad though, because I feel like if you had an injury or two and you wanted to call someone up, I think Austin Watkins has enough a nice enough skill set to be that guy.
Absolutely.
But it tells the tale of this team and where they're at, where it's just like they're no longer just taking the stars of the preseason and making the roster. They're keeping the best players, and sometimes good players are going to get cut. Yep. And I think that's what happened with Watkins. I just think that it was a numbers game, and he just didn't make the cut. And don't get me wrong, like I hope he sticks around. I would love him to stick around, but if he goes somewhere else and gets claimed, he's earned it. He earned a roster spot. He earned a roster spot they just didn't have.
there's definitely an upside with Austin Watkins that I think a team would want to have. And so if it's not with the Browns, it definitely could be with somebody else. I'll root for him. I absolutely will. It'll be like KhaDarel Hodge. I mean, we're all upset. So I'm a big Austin Watkins fan. But on the other side of this argument, we were all thrilled with KhaDarel Hodge, and we haven't really seen a whole lot of him in the NFL since the Browns cut him. And everybody was just angry when the Browns cut KhaDarel Hodge. So just despite the fact that I really do like Austin Watkins, I'm just, pointing out the other side of it.
And real quick, as I put some propaganda on your screen to like this video and subscribe to the channel, keep in mind that we will shoot a video week 1 when the Browns are 1-0 of Nick in Cleveland Browns Stadium doing the 1-chip challenge. So, Nick, you need to order that chip.
Oh, I'll get it.
I know you're listening in that room. Order him that chip.
Well, there you
Does
go.
she hear me?
She's in the other room, but I'll get it.
Whatever.
I will get the chip.
Order
Good idea going to her because she's way more organized than me.
I'll send her a text. Anyway, so we'll move on from there. Mick making a comment about Jed Wills getting a little bit too bad of a rap. I'm with you too. On that. I think he's a league average player. Not he has the talent to be better, but I think he's league average. Okay, so we're going to go to the offensive line here. Again, the only surprise being Michael Dunn getting cut, though I believe he will come back. I think people are surprised with Nick Harris and Luke Whippler, but if you watched last week's show, I did suggest that could happen last week because Luke Whippler had played in the second and third preseason game. He was playing left guard. He played 19 snaps against the Eagles, and he was pretty good. Well, he went out there, played some more guard against the Chiefs. It's pretty good. And then one of the biggest knocks on Luke Whippler coming in was play strength, but also that he was probably a center only and couldn't play guard. And we know that Nick Harris, who has played guard, was not good at guard. And we wanted to keep him around because I think Nick Harris is better than Luke Whippler, at least right now. I don't know coming off the injury. I don't know because, the injury can change some things. But I liked Nick Harris quite a bit at center. And we said, well, they're not going to keep 3 centers. Like, you're just not going to do that because you don't have the flexibility. Well, Whippler goes out there and makes you at least believe that he has the ability to be okay at guard. So that changes things. And you say, hey, we really want to give up Nick Harris. And I think Nick Harris still remains a guy they could trade. They could trade Nick Harris and get a pick. Or let's say, I'm trying to think, I really love this roster. But, like, they want another tackle. Maybe they don't love James Hudson as much as they used to. You could trade Nick Harris and go get another tackle or something like that, which I guess you wouldn't do that because you already traded Tyron Wheatley. What I'm getting at is Nick Harris could be an appetizing trade piece if they potentially go there. That's the only surprise there, but getting to see, Tampa Bay did lose their center. Drew points it out.
Yeah.
I like Nick Harris. I was not sure how he was going to react coming back from the ACL, but he has looked pretty good. Whippler's looked pretty good. I think all of those linemen make sense to me. I just think that I would have kept Michael Dunn over Nick Harris, but there's a possibility they end up keeping both of them, in which case I'm appeased.
I definitely would have kept Michael Dunn over Nick Harris if given that choice. However, if they get Dunn back, totally fine with, because on the other side of that coin, we were talking about Nick Harris being the Browns starter just a year ago before we knew that Postic was going to be as good as he ended up being. So I haven't lost faith in that. I still think he could be. And so if Nick Harris is your backup center when we were thinking and relatively okay with the fact that he was going to start for the Browns, I think that's a pretty good position to be in. So it would make sense to me if they had the full 10 offensive linemen. If Dunn comes back, then I feel tremendous about the offensive line. Well, yeah, mostly tremendous about the offensive line depth because I think all the guys are at least capable of being decent.
They're serviceable. Yeah, they're at least serviceable.
And that's a great place to be because there are not a lot of teams that I think would feel good about a full 10 linemen. I just don't think that's the case around the NFL.
And New England proved it. They traded not for just Wheatley, they traded for two offensive linemen.
That's true.
So that's an interesting piece there.
And so did the Texans, I believe. The Texans also traded for two offensive linemen.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So overall, the offensive line is probably one of the most solidified positions on the team. So not a ton of surprises there.
I think it's the trenches, man. We moved to the defensive side of the football, and I love this. Just Jordan Elliott stinks. So don't anybody in here think that me saying I love this defensive line means I like Jordan Elliott. He stinks. Anyway, like that was mean. I'm sorry, Jordan. You're probably a great person.
Maybe the pressure being off of him. Maybe the pressure being off of him allows Jordan Elliott to.
Pressure was off of him in the preseason.
Well, that's true too. So I'm just trying. I think that's all. That's all I can do at this point. Just try.
That's the biggest surprise for me. Keeping Jordan Elliott, not Mo Hurst. Again, I believe Mo Hurst comes back, and they get back to 10 overall. But what I want to say about the defensive line, is I'm looking at it. Myles Garrett, Shelby Harris, Siaki Ika, Isaiah McGuire, Ogbo Okoronkwo, Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, Alex Wright. Oh, those are some good football players. Like those are good football players when they have been out there, and Myles hasn't played a snap. He only played 12 snaps. No, Jordan Elliott played a lot more in the preseason. He played 12 snaps in the first game. He played 12 snaps in the Hall of Fame game. This defensive line, when the starters have been out there without Myles Garrett, have been terrifying. I said this before. It feels like the defense is taking on the personality of Jim Schwartz, and I really think he can get the best out of this group. I really think Andrew Berry tailored this defensive line to what Jim Schwartz likes to do. Siaki Ika has been good enough against the run. I'm still not crazy about that pick. I think there were better players there, but Siaki Ika can help stop the run. Dalvin Tomlinson's a 3-down player. He's not going to play 3 downs all the time, but what I'm getting at is he can rush the passer and stop the run. Mm-hmm. Shelby Harris, same thing. I think he can stop the run, and he's a relentless rush. I love Shelby Harris. I've watched Shelby Harris in these last couple of preseason games as they were trying to get him up to speed, because he was a late addition. And this dude does not shut his motor off. Like, this dude is flying around. Zadarius Smith just destroyed Jawan Taylor a couple of times. And Ogbo has been a menace in the run game. And all of this is happening without somebody named Myles Garrett. I think this defensive line is surprising that Jordan Elliott made it. I would have even kept Tommy Togiai over Jordan Elliott. He actually played pretty well in the preseason. But, yeah, all of that said to say, not super surprised about this defensive line, but this defensive line should absolutely be one of the biggest strengths of this entire team.
Which is crazy coming off of where we've been, right?
It sucked.
What we were just saying not too long ago. So I think there's no coincidence that the Browns have had turnovers in, I believe, 3 straight preseason games now.
Well, they scored in 3 straight preseason games.
Yes, they did. They scored in 3 straight. You're right. But you're forcing turnovers. You're seeing defensive scoring a lot that we did not see last year. I will say I picked Isaiah Thomas to make the roster, and I still believe he could have if he didn't get hurt. I think that's just one of those tough situations that we'll never know. I still feel like Isaiah Thomas could have made the roster, so we'll see where that goes. Who knows? Could he?
He could hang around if he clears waivers.
That's what I'm thinking. Is that has Isaiah Thomas done enough to get claimed by another team? Maybe. I don't feel super strongly about that, so I'm hoping he ends up back because I thought he at least was encouraging, and so we'll see there. But I just think overall, all of a sudden, from year to year, you've built a ton of depth, and I've loved the pressure that we've seen this line get on quarterbacks in the preseason. So that's really exciting. I think overall, the depth chart of the defensive line isn't particularly, or the guys that they kept isn't particularly surprising. And so I just think you get Alex Wright back to healthy. That's a big one for me. And let's see what this rotation hopefully Mo Hurst is back, of defensive tackles can do, because that is something we have not seen. And because even when the Browns had Malik McDowell and Malik Jackson, I can never remember. Even when they had those two, they didn't really have a ton of depth behind them. And so I feel like this could be the first year where we see true defensive tackle depth. And that idea is just awesome. Because
go ahead, sorry.
I just, between the defensive ends and the defensive tackles that you now have amassed, there's a lot to like there.
It's one of those things where, like, the defensive tackles, I think they'll be pretty good, but, like, they just need to be average, because that's how good I think the rest of the line is. It's just like with Dustin Hopkins with the kicker. It's like, I think they can be pretty good, but, like, if they're just average with the dudes they have rushing the passer, yeah, man, like, that's gonna be rad. There was a question
excited.
over here.
I just one final note on the defensive ends. I'm excited to see if Isaiah McGuire can make an impact, because I think Alex Wright would probably be getting more playing time above him if he was healthy. So there's definitely an opportunity there. Maybe he is an early season contributor. That would be
yeah, potentially. This is my first year as a Browns fan. What should I expect? Probably you're going to learn of new ways to lose. Not that they're going to lose, but a bunch of games, but they're going to lose, and they're going to lose in a Browns fashion at least once, because that's the rules.
What if our new friend here is the good luck charm, and the Browns just have this amazing season, and that's all he knows?
Listen, some punk 82. If you are the good luck charm and they win the division this year, look me up. I will send you several homage T-shirts.
I'll tell you what. I think you picked a good year to be a Browns fan. I feel like this is, if there was ever a year that they were going to break through, as you know, I know I'm skipping a little bit ahead here, but I firmly believe this is the most talented Browns roster we've had in a very long time.
Yeah, and we're getting there. So let's get to the linebacker. We got linebackers and defensive backs. Let's go to the linebackers. Jordan Kanasic, he's definitely going to the IR. He has that MCL injury, but the good news is it wasn't worst case scenario, and he has a good chance to return this year. He's a great special teamer. I really like him. So as a special teamer, I don't like him as a linebacker. Matt Adams makes the roster. He is a special teamer. Tony Fields, I like what Tony Fields did. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah looks bigger and stronger. Sione Takitaki is inhuman. Already recovered from it was December, right? Yeah, December ACL tear, which is just insane. We get Anthony Walker back, and my man Mahmoud Diabate. Dude has earned that roster spot and then some. Like, I did a film room here on the channel several months ago about Diabate, and this dude just plays with his hair on fire. If you're talking about a dude that can range sideline to sideline and come crashing downhill with reckless abandon, you're describing Mahmoud Diabate. This dude is – I don't get how a dude this athletic doesn't get drafted. I'm not saying he should have been a third-round pick. I'm saying he should have been freaking drafted. And, like, I think he's you know what's funny? He's only been playing off-ball linebacker this is his second year. When he was at Florida, he was almost exclusively a TJ Watt style pass rusher. What? So, and you've seen it, man. He's very effective as a blitzer because he understands how to attack and rush the passer. And I think he's pretty good in coverage. And I think he will be a menace on special teams early. Mahmoud Diabate, listen, hats off to you for doing nothing but working your ass off, and for the greatest press conference I have ever seen. Did you see this press conference?
Oh, I did, about Stefanski.
Oh my God, he was like, don't have the sound or I'd play it for you guys, but he was like, oh my God, it was so funny. He was talking last week and, getting ready for the KC game. He was one of the players that was made available. And he's like, yeah, I never met with the Browns. I didn't really think anything of them, in the pre-draft process. I had met with one of their scouts at the Shrine game, but hadn't really did it. And he said right after the draft, he gets a FaceTime call, and it's from a number he doesn't know. And he answers it. And he said, this guy is pitching the Browns, telling him why he should come to Cleveland, all this stuff. And Diabate said, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. It was Kevin Stefanski.
Sure was.
Coach. And so, which is also really cool. Like it wasn't just some dude. It was Stefanski that called it. Right.
That's really cool. I like that.
But it's crazy. It shows you how good and how highly they think of him, because this is the best roster we've seen, and they still had 2 undrafted free agents make this roster. And it just shows that they truly don't have the ego of my guys, my picks over the best players. I think the best player made the roster, Mamu Diabate, and I think he will be a long-term solution at off-ball linebacker in Cleveland.
Just awesome, because we were talking about this pre-show. You are now building a track record, as Andrew Berry, of finding undrafted free agents. You've got AJ Green, got D'Anthony Bell, now you've got Ronnie Hickman and Mahmoud Diabate, which is awesome. I love that. Being able to pick these guys up without having to use draft picks, I cannot say how valuable that is. We just talked about how low the 7th round hit rate is. Imagine the undrafted free agent hit rate. It has to be abysmal compared to the overall pool of guys that are left at the end of it, because you're only drafting 256,
something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Players. So you're talking about the rest of college of eligible players in the undrafted free agent pool. So for Andrew Berry to pick out 2 this year is a huge credit to him and a huge boost to that linebacker core. You know, you lose Jacob Phillips again. You've got Sione Takasaki.
Oh shit!
Working back from injury. Anthony Walker's working back from injury, right? There's Kevin Stefanski just talked about wanting them both for week 1 and that kind of thing. But regardless, you know, and with Jordan going to IR as well, you've got injuries there. And so, you know what, Diabate stepped up when the time was right, took advantage of his opportunity. Those are the type of stories that you rally behind. And, you know, it's ironic to me that 43 this year is just this guy that is just filled with effort and hustle,
pure effort
and intensity, and just the exact opposite of what we saw out of number 43.
He laid it. The first hit he laid that like really caught my attention. I was like, what is John Johnson? Oh,
yep. Oh, and then you had that realization. Boom.
I was telling my dad hadn't really been able to catch that. He's a semi driver. He hadn't really been able to catch much of the preseason until this weekend. And I went down, was talking with him and hung out with him watching the game on Saturday. And he was like, hey, who's that guy? Who's that guy? You know, he's like, I got to learn who this is. He asked me twice who Zadarius Smith was. He was like, oh, I already asked you that. I don't know. You know, because he was just trying, you know, it's the first time that he had the opportunity to really watch him. And it's new people on numbers like,
yeah.
Numbers that have been worn, like Shelby Harris throws me off, makes me think it's Perion Winfrey. Like, Diabate throws me off with John Johnson.
Mo Hurst makes me think he's Jadeveon Clowney sometimes. I'm like, 90, you know. But
why is Clowney on the inside?
I remember there were a couple times in camp. That's like my big acclimating process to the numbers, because I'm lucky enough that my work schedule works out that I can go to most of the camps that are open to the public. But I noticed 43 a couple times, and I was like, well, I know it's not John Johnson anymore. And so it took me a couple times to pick up the fact that it was Diabate. And so to see him make the roster now is just that's going to be a great story. It's going to be a feel-good story. We're going to love to tell it, because I think he's here to stick around. I very much do. It could be in the same vein as you know, AJ Green's been here for a while now. I think this is his 3rd year.
2020, I think, was his first year, so I think it's his 4th season.
4th year. Okay, so 4th.
Something like that.
So you never know. Some of these undrafted free agents, they stick around for you and they contribute. So feeling pretty good about the linebacking core.
I think they're the weak spot of the defense.
Agreed.
I'll say that. But I think the defensive line is going to be so good that it's going to help them by keeping them clean. We're gonna hit defensive backs. Not a lot to say about the defensive backs. I think it's really good. But real quick, if we could just welcome Casey Kinnaman to the network, he will be contributing with us for the rest of the season. He will be pairing with me and some other people. He'll actually be on the Petty Eddie podcast tomorrow, I believe.
I saw that. Nice
But he
piece.
will also be pairing with me for the post-game shows. And of course, a lot of other people, Tyler and you, and a lot of other people are going to join us for the post-game shows. But at least me and Casey, for the most part, will be there. Except for the week 1, I won't be there. But just some cool stuff going on at the network. I'm really excited. Some cool personal stuff going on as well. So if you want to check out the PSF app and join that, you can do that. Me and Casey will be over there making a show. Off the Leash is the show over on PSF. All right. I'm surprised they kept 11. This is the weird part because, like, are you going to cut one of those guys? Because I don't think any of those guys are going to IR except for potentially one. So I am surprised that they kept AJ Green and DeAnthony Bell. I thought they would keep 2 of DeAnthony Bell, Ronnie Hickman, or AJ Green. They would keep 2 of those 3 players. I didn't know which ones. I thought it would be Hickman and AJ Green. They end up keeping all of them. 5 safeties, 11 defensive backs. I don't hate it from a simple standpoint of, like, I don't hate it from a sense of, like, this is a passing league, so you need a bunch of, like, defensive backs back there. But, like, how much is your 5th safety going to play?
That's and
even
so
special teams.
That's my biggest gripe is because I picked between Hickman and DeAnthony Bell. I picked DeAnthony Bell, and I'm not here to detract from what Ronnie Hickman did this preseason. I thought he was overall a nice surprise. Now, granted, they played an extra game. I get that, but interceptions don't grow on trees. Ronnie Hickman finished with the NFL lead, or tied for the NFL lead in interceptions this preseason. I think he had a good preseason, and he showed why he belongs on this roster. So I'm not here to say he doesn't. However, when you look at keeping 5 safeties, I would imagine that has not happened in the Andrew Berry era. And that seems like a lot to me. So we'll see.
I think one of those guys, one of those 11 gets cut. It's not 2.
Yeah, it just feels very, very crowded, especially when you've got so many defensive backs that you feel good about. Although with Denzel Ward getting concussed again, and I do want to touch on this one piece of the roster.
Can I say this?
Yeah.
I would not be shocked if Denzel goes to short-term IR tomorrow.
And that's the scary part, is that this is his 4th concussion. He had those 3 right in a pretty tight group. We saw what
he missed 3 games with one last year.
Yeah, and we saw what happened with Tua and his concussions. There's a hyper awareness of them now, and that is a very concerning piece to this, because you gave deservedly so. Denzel Ward got his $100 million contract, but when he's one of your highest paid players and he's got concussed again, that is a big concern. So maybe you saw what you liked in Hickman and Bell, and so you decided that because Jacob, you said that you were going to pick one of the 3 or 2 of the 3, including AJ Green. Maybe AJ Green makes the roster because of the Denzel Ward concussion. That could be a situation too, because all of a sudden you go from saying our top 3 corners are all rock solid options that we're excited about to the situation with Denzel Ward. How long is he going to be out? And then we know, on top of that, when you get concussed, you're more likely to continue getting concussed. So maybe they decided to hedge their bet a little bit, can keep a little more depth in the secondary.
And keep in mind, they have that really early week 5 bye. So if they put somebody on IR, they only have to miss 5. They miss 4 games, but they'll get 5 weeks because they'll get the bye week thrown in there. I think either a corner or a safety is cut, or Denzel goes to short-term IR. And honestly, for his sake, I think he probably should. Just be safe. Go on short-term IR. Get yourself healthy. Make sure everything's good. They've got MJ Emerson. They've got Greg Newsome. I think Cam Mitchell and Mike Ford. Mike Ford has experience in the slot, but not a ton. But I think you can, and AJ Green has some slot experience, but you can put some guys in there. You could even use one of your extra safeties. Ronnie Hickman can play in the slot. We saw that at Ohio State. I think they should be cautious about Denzel Ward, and I think maybe that's why they're at 11. But top to bottom, I think they have some really talented defensive backs. And Rodney McLeod's, he's forgot about a lot. But guess what? That is another veteran leader on a side of the football that lacked it last year.
And has Super Bowl experience. And
Engine Sports experience.
And I just, yeah, and that's a good point. I just want to say that I feel like I would be nervous if Denzel Ward suited up week 1, and then that realization hit me today, and I was definitely pretty sad about it because man, it sucks that it happened when it did, but it's like you can't wrap these guys in bubble wrap. They need to play. They need to be out there. So I'm not going to blame. That is football. Football, it just involved. I've broken both of my ankles playing football. I don't know. That's just the sport. It's the crappy part of it. So we'll see what happens with that. And the Browns are always mum on severity and length of injuries. So maybe we get details. It makes sense, Jacob. Your theory on that makes sense. If that he could be put on short-term IR tomorrow. We'll see where that goes. But I think top to bottom, this is a roster that I feel good about. That I feel has the depth. I'm not. If Denzel Ward's out week 1, I'm not going to act like the sky is falling and panic and say the Browns can no longer beat the Bengals. I think that the secondary is good enough. The depth is good enough to deal with some of these injuries. They're going to happen to every team. You might as well get them out of the way. You've got an early bye, which buys you a little bit of extra time, pun intended.
12 wins.
12 wins?
12 wins.
12 wins. Listen to this guy over here. I'm thinking I want to stick at 11. I'm upping it by 1 because you improve your kicking situation. And honestly, I feel like I went back and looked. The Browns lost 4 games last year by 3 points or less. And I could have went even more in depth to see if there were missed field goals in those games, but I remember in some of them there were. So even just thinking about that, I think that the Browns roster is that much better and your kicking game is that much more reliable. I'm going to sit. I'm at 11. I'm at 11-6. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm staying. I think you will be firmly in the race throughout the year, which will be particularly exciting. So our new friend, I'm sorry, I don't remember, our new Browns fan friend, Some Punk 82. Welcome. I feel like you're in for a good time, my friend.
Guys, like, comment, subscribe. Petty Eddie tomorrow, Faithful Dogs tomorrow.
Do we have Dog Chug tomorrow?
Dog Chug tomorrow. Yeah, 3 shows coming at you live tomorrow.
Network 216.
Tell me
learning out the stuff.
Comment below. Tell me how many wins you got the Browns at. Tell me your biggest surprise, your biggest disappointments, your happiness with this roster. Do all that great stuff. Keep being beautiful. And we love you.
We do love you. And I will say a couple things. Number 1, I feel very confident in saying that this is the most active viewers Jacob and I have ever carried throughout a show. Thank you to you. That is, I can't tell you what a feeling that is. And the fruits of those labor are going to be delicious. So thank you. Number 2, we are definitely planning a giveaway, I think, at 2,000 subscribers.
2,000 subs.
2,000 subs. So
tell your friends.
If you haven't clicked that sub button yet, it's free. You'll be entered to win some cool stuff. We've got lots of fun things in the work for you. We absolutely, it is an honor to be able to do this and to be able to pursue these dreams. So can't wait. This is the second last show before the season, Jacob.
Yeah, next week is our bold prediction show. We got our bold prediction show next week.
We're going bold predictions, baby.
I'm going to have so damn bold.
I might be tweeting some things and riling some fellow fan bases up. I might be doing that.
I want to do something stupid though. Like I want to make a bold prediction that's just like, who cares? Like, how many times? Oh, I got one. I can't say this out loud because I don't want to ruin it for next week's show. But I just came up with such a good one, and I'm so excited.
My homework for all of you that have stayed with us for this long, and for anybody that listens this long in the following week between now and our bold prediction show, my homework for you is I want you to come back with a bold prediction. If you drop a bold prediction on next week's show, we will put it on the screen and we will talk about it. That's what we'll do.
And I'm going to do something really stupid. You know those NPCs on TikTok where people are making them do stuff?
Yeah.
I'm going to probably next week be like, hey, if you're watching live and you donate $1, I don't know, eat a habanero pepper or something.
Oh,
I don't know. We'll probably just like
You
if
better
you want
bring the whole carton.
it's gonna be spicy next week.
It's gonna be spicy.
Okay.
All right. With that being said, this has been episode 117 of the Barking Brown Show. I'm Nick. He's Jacob. Go Browns.
German chocolate cake made in Texas.
Oh.
There you go.